G'day, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're watching this video, you're probably a busy, career-driven guy. And maybe you're working long hours, juggling endless meetings, and maybe even raising a family. But you're still trying to lose 10, 20, maybe even 40 pounds while trying to build some lean, functional muscle and actually look like you work out. But let's be honest, it hasn't really been working out. Not because you're lazy or because you don't want it bad enough, but because you've been set up to fail. Let me explain. Number one, you're probably used to following workouts made by these online shredded influencers whose entire day is they wake up, eat, sleep, train, post. And that might work for them, but for a busy corporate guy in the real world, it's gonna be a losing game. Number two, you've never followed a plan or a system that's actually tailored for your life that takes into account work, high stress, and recovery. Number three, you're probably trying to outrun a bad diet with endless amounts of cardio and no approach to weight training, and it leaves you feeling flat, tired, frustrated, and stuck. And number four, you may be trying to do all of this solo, all guesswork, with no structure, no accountability, and no feedback. But that all ends now, because in this video, I'm gonna be sharing with you the exact system that I use for all of my busy, high-performing clients. Doctors, lawyers, sales reps, guys who sit primarily at a desk all day and still get lean. In this video, we're gonna be covering exactly what to buy from the grocery store, how to make fat-burning, muscle-building meals in under 15 minutes, a smart, efficient way to train in the gym even with a tight schedule, and how to burn fat without tracking every bite or living in the gym. And to make it even easier to follow along, I've dropped a few free resources in the description below. And that includes a recipe book with over 10 high-protein, low-fat meals, a plug-and-play meal plan template, and a complete grocery list. So by the end of this video, you'll have everything that you need to execute with no guesswork, no fluff, and no calorie counting. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first stop is the grocery store, and I'll see you there.
Okay, so first up we have some high protein, low fat Greek yogurt that we can use for our smoothies and our bowls. You can see here 18 grams of protein per serving and around 120 cal per serving too. Okay, next up we have a bag of frozen berries here, some blackberries, blueberries, some strawberries and raspberries. We'll take that with us too. Okay, next up we're gonna grab some milk. Now I love this brand because it's low fat, high protein, and it's lactose free. So it's pretty much just straight protein. Per serving, we've got about 50 grams here. So this entire bottle is about 400 calories, 60 grams of protein, unreal. That's gonna go great with the coffees, with the shakes, and our smoothies too. And last but not least, for our smoothie bowls, we're just gonna grab some honey. Honestly, whatever is cheapest, doesn't really matter too much there, so chuck that in with us. How can we forget, guys, the eggs? Honestly, doesn't really matter what brand, what type. I'm gonna go with the cage-free. These are gonna be an absolute essential in our diet. Okay, for our meats, first up we have some frozen salmon here. I like the frozen one, it's a lot cheaper, comes in packs of 8, right? So it's a lot cheaper than fresh salmon. Slap that in the air fryer, it'll taste just the same, so we'll take that with us. Okay, next up for our meat, we've got some low-fat beef mince. This one's 5% fat. Guys, I'd recommend getting the extra lean if possible, right? We wanna keep it at max 5% fat. It's gonna make a big difference with the calories, so we'll add that one too. Alrighty, and last but not least here, we've got some good old chicken breast, gonna be a staple there for some of our meals too. Now for our veggies, we're gonna grab some sweet potato. Definitely wanna get, 2 or 3 of these so they last a couple days. Too, some white potatoes are also great. If you're in Australia, they have these Spud Light potatoes, so a lot less calories, less carbs, super high volume, gonna keep you really nice and full. So white or sweet potato, perfectly fine. And for our rice, rather than cooking from scratch, we're just gonna use any type of microwave 2-minute rice there, right? Just regular basmati rice. You can get white rice, brown rice. It's all honestly the same, right? Chuck that for 2 minutes in the microwave and we're good to go. Gonna save us a lot of time. We're gonna add some avocado too, so obviously just look for a couple of ripe ones. It's gonna add a lot of natural, healthy fats and nice, rich, creamy texture to our meals, so get a couple of these as well. Then in terms of greens, guys, I'd go with spinach, broccolini, right, or regular broccoli. I'm gonna go with the broccolini. I just like the way it tastes, and it's really easy to chop up, right, instead of the standard broccoli heads. So we'll go with 1 or 2 of these. Now in terms of oil, guys, we want to always make sure we use an extra virgin olive oil. I would highly recommend avoiding the bottle. It's about 130 calories per tablespoon, so it adds up. We'll go with the spray instead. Usually about 10-20 calories per serving there, so that's going to save us a lot of extra junk calories. Now for our sauces, we've got a taco sauce. Any type of hot sauce will do great. Even like a Nando's peri-peri sauce, right? Really low calorie, next to 0 calorie. We've got a sugar-free, close to sugar-free barbecue sauce there, right? It's gonna help us save some calories. I've got a low-fat, near fat-free mayonnaise there, right? Once again, going to be about 15, 20 calories. And last but not least, we've got a low-calorie chipotle aioli. It's going to go great with a lot of our meals. All right, now for our seasonings, I usually like to go with standard like Mexican seasoning. Right, and for our chicken, we've got our garlic salt here and paprika. That's also going to work really nicely for salmon as well. So these are basically all we need. Some regular table salt, pepper also works too. All right. We're back from the grocery store. We've got all the food laid out. It's quite a big spread. Hopefully you can see it all. So we're back at the apartment and we're now going to break down the benefit that these foods are going to have for your fat loss, muscle building journey, how they're going to revitalize your energy, your hormones, right? And the reason why we actually chose these specific foods. Okay, so the first thing we'll be delving into is, of course, the protein. The protein, baby. Now, what do we have here in terms of protein? We've got lean beef mince, we've got eggs at the front. Hopefully you can see that. We've got chicken breasts hiding behind the kiwis here. We've got some salmon. We've got some high protein milk, high protein yogurt. Now, these are all what you call complete proteins, okay? That's what they have in common. They're a complete protein. Now, a complete protein, and this is very important, is a protein that contains all 9 essential amino acids. For anyone who doesn't know, amino acids are essentially the building blocks for muscle growth and recovery from our workouts, okay? Now, not all proteins are made equal. So, there's protein in things like vegan protein powder, things like beans, right? There's even protein in these oats here. There's protein in rice, right? But the difference between a complete protein and, let's say, a non-animal source protein is that they are far less bioavailable. They do not contain all 9 essential amino acids, okay? So we want to source 90% of our protein intake from these animal-based products. That's going to give us the best bang for our buck in terms of building lean muscle. Now, the next thing we'll be diving into are the carbohydrates, the carbs. What do we have? We've got some oats, we've got some sweet potato, we've got some rice here, right? And we've got some white potato too. Now, I didn't buy it, but certainly one thing you can have just about daily, wholemeal bread and or sourdough bread, okay? Now, there's a select type of carbohydrate that we really want to try and opt for, and that's what we call a complex carbohydrate, okay? As opposed to a simple refined carbohydrate. So we have complex and simple. Okay, so simple refined carbohydrates, okay, these include white bread, white rice, okay, and sugar, right? Not necessarily sugar from fruits because they contain fructose, so it's its own separate thing, but more so, classic sugar in like candy, soda, chocolate, etc. Right? Now, all of these things lack a key word here, fiber. They all lack fiber, right? Refined carbohydrates do not contain fiber. Now, why is fiber so important? Honestly, guys, it's one of the most underrated, neglected components of our nutrition because what it's going to do is it's going to slow down your digestion process, okay? Let's say if you have a piece of white bread versus the piece of the wholemeal bread, the only main difference is the wholemeal bread has the fiber in it, okay? Well, you have the piece of white bread, and let's say in 1 to 2 hours, more like 90 minutes, you're hungry again, right? Because you get an instant big blood sugar spike, a big insulin spike, and then a sharp crash, okay? So this is the blood sugar spike with simple carbs, straight up, straight down, crash, right? With the complex carbs, with the fiber, right, it's more of a slow burn and then a slow die off. So we don't get that big crash all of a sudden, right? And it takes a lot longer to metabolize complex carbohydrates, meaning that we're going to stay full for like 3, 4, 5 hours with the wholemeal bread, okay? And the same thing works there for brown rice versus white rice, okay? Oats, also a complex carbohydrate, right? Sweet potato, also a complex carbohydrate because they are rich in fiber, okay? So what this means, okay, for the same calories, refined versus complex, we can stay full for 2 to 3 times longer for the same calories, okay? And the longer that we can stay full, well, it means the less likely we are to spill over and eat a bunch of food that takes us out of our deficit, okay? We want to be able to stay full as long as possible for the least amount of calories so that we can be in a controlled deficit, okay? Now, moving on, we have the fats here too, right? So we've got some salmon here, right, which is really great, omega-3, gonna put your brain into ultimate productivity mode, have you feeling fantastic after. We've got some avocados too, right? Loads of benefits there as well. Now, what both of these are going to be responsible for is keeping a healthy testosterone level, right? So getting in some healthy fats is going to help optimize your testosterone level, right? If you pretty much just diet on lean protein and carbohydrates alone and you completely neglect fats, your testosterone level is going to crash significantly. If our testosterone is suboptimal, that means our metabolism is going to get wrecked, our ability to burn fat is going to be in the toilet, right? And our ability to gain muscle is going to be negligible. So we have to be in a calorie deficit while also eating foods that are going to preserve our hormones to keep our body primed for fat loss and muscle gain. Now, like I said earlier in the grocery store too, okay, we want to use a spray oil instead of, just regular bottle olive oil because 130 calories per tablespoon. You're cooking some chicken, you're cooking some beef, whatever. Add a tablespoon. Oh, it's a little bit dry. Add another tablespoon. Oh, it's still dry. Add another one. Now you've added 500 calories of oil to your meal without even knowing it, right? Of course, we have eggs here, right? Now, these are absolutely loaded in a whole different profile of vitamins. I would highly suggest you incorporate those into your diet. Now, if we are focused on fat loss, just know that eggs can be a little bit calorie dense, okay? So it's about 80 calories per egg, about 60 grams of protein, all right? So that means that, we do need to be eating a fair amount of eggs, like 5-6 eggs, right? For most people, for me, definitely, to actually get, a sufficient amount of protein. At the same time, right, there is a lot of fat in the yolks. So my recommendation, anytime you have eggs, right, if you're having scrambled eggs, an omelet, right, use 1 to 2 whole eggs and then use the rest as egg whites, okay? So you can buy egg whites on their own, or you can just do what I do and sift the yolk out of the egg. It's very simple. That way we can still get all the benefits, the vitamin profile from the eggs. We can keep it lean, right? And it still basically tastes the exact same. Now, moving forward to here, right, we've got some of our greens here. So, like we talked about before, complex carbohydrates, rich in fiber, so are greens, okay? So broccoli, broccolini. We've also got things like spinach too. Iceberg lettuce, not really too much. It's just mainly water. But yeah, what these will do, okay, because they are basically virtually 0 calorie, the makeup of most greens is like 90% water. It means that we can add an extra volume to our foods, right? If we're making things like a stir fry, right? Things of that nature. And yeah, we can, double the size of our meal by chucking in lots of veggies, right? For virtually 0 extra calories, right? And let me tell you something. No one's ever gotten fat from eating too much broccolini, right? Now, you can also use other veggies too, things like cauliflower, things like carrot, right? All perfectly acceptable to use. Onion, obviously, go crazy. To be honest, I don't even really track vegetables because they are just such low calorie. All these foods, what do they have in common? They are what you call high volume, low calorie. High volume, low calorie. It means that once we combine all these foods and make them into a meal, we're going to be able to get a big voluminous meal for maybe about 500 calories, right? So that is going to be the key here with our eating. We want to be able to eat foods that are large in size, going to keep our tummy really full while still staying within our calorie range. We want to try and avoid what we call calorie dense foods. Now, these are foods that do the exact opposite, right? They're very, very small in size for a large amount of calories, right? And that includes things like oils, butter, a lot of processed foods, fast food, chocolate, all the classic processed sweets that, I'm sure that we've all eaten, right, a million times. So we want to try and avoid that stuff because it's really easy to spill over in our calories, right? And so the main gist here with our groceries, they want to be low fat,
right? High volume, low calorie, nutrient rich foods. Now, without further ado, let's get cooking up our breakfast. Okay guys, the first thing we're gonna be cooking up here are our eggs. Let's turn on our hot plate or stove, whatever you got. Bloody hot plate sometimes. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but we're getting it done. Okay, so first thing we're gonna just be adding our oil, right? Don't wanna use too much, but wanna make sure it's nice and lubricated, so don't have to go crazy with it. Like I said, it's about, 15, 20 calories. Now we're gonna be adding our eggs, okay? So, look, if you're primarily in like a lean gaining phase, you can just use, 100% egg whites. But if we are focused on fat loss, then we really want to try and make sure that, majority of what we're adding is egg white, okay? If you didn't know, egg whites are basically just pure lean protein. For most of you watching this, I would recommend probably just adding in 2. So now we're about to sift the yolk out. Hope you can see that there. Right, so it's as easy as that, just sifting that yolk out. Now, you can prepare this all in like a bowl separately before adding, but we're busy guys, we've got shit to do, so just gonna try and make this as quick as possible, right? So we're gonna use a spatula. Just wanna make sure that we whisk it nice and thoroughly. Okay, so while that's cooking, we're gonna pop this on. I find that having the lid on, right, definitely makes it a lot more fluffier. That's just the way that I like it. Okay, and it only takes, literally about 90 seconds there for majority of those eggs to finish cooking. Right, it's almost done. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but I like my eggs a little bit on the runnier side. I hate overcooked scrambled eggs. Now, the key thing here, right, is once they're about 75% cooked, we take them off the pan, right, so they don't get overcooked. Scrambled eggs can go from almost ready to burnt very, very, very quickly. And the last thing we're going to do here is just add some low-fat shredded cheese. I didn't include this in the grocery haul, but just a tiny little bit there, right? Even a tiny bit there will go a long way, right? And that's one of the keys, guys, with, dieting, but still making food that tastes good. We can add a little bit of the good stuff, right, in moderation. Just don't overdo it. We don't need to add half a packet of cheese. Just a tiny little sprinkle is all that we need there, guys. And our scrambled eggs are basically ready, right? The cheese will melt in there. Okay, check that out. That's almost 40 grams of protein right there, guys. And it literally took me how long? I want to say 3 freaking minutes. I'm going to top this off with some good old-fashioned Australian chicken salt. If you're from Australia, you'll know what this stuff is. I love it. I put it on everything. If you're not, well then, just regular table salt is good. Okay, and then we're done, guys. Now we can enjoy. One thing you can always add to this too, if you want to get some complex carbs with some fiber, would be some sourdough or some regular wholemeal bread. Now, if you start work pretty early, right, let's say you're going to be at the office at about 7, 8 in the morning, you don't really have the time even to cook some eggs in the morning for 5 minutes. Well, don't worry, I've got another solution for you. Okay, we've got something that you can take with you to the office. Okay, it's very simple, about 4 ingredients here. It's going to be a high-protein breakfast smoothie. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to pour out our high-protein, low-fat yogurt there. Hopefully you can see that. Now, what you will notice is that I've got a cooking scale here. If you don't have one, don't sweat. I've just got this out because it will make it a little bit more accurate. Right, so per 200 grams is 18, basically 20 grams of protein, right? So we're going to see how much volume here 200 grams really is. But yeah, guys, look, if you do get a cooking scale, a lot of guys, have a bit of a notion that's super complicated and overwhelming, but it's so simple, right? So it just really helps keep everything super on point, super dialed in. But if you don't have one, like I said, don't stress. So I reckon we'll put about 300 grams in, right? And that will get us to about 30 grams of protein. Right, almost there. Okay, 304, that will do. Okay, the next thing we're gonna add now are our berries. I don't really measure this. To be honest, I don't really track, fruits and veggies, right? Most of them, because they are just so low calorie, right? So that's pretty much filled to the brim there. Take some out. And you can use whatever you like. If you want to use mango, that's cool too. So next, this stuff is a beauty. Like I said, high protein, low fat, lactose-free milk. So lactose is mainly natural sugar in the milk. That's why sometimes you can have whole milk and feel a little bit bloated, feel a little bit, oh, I've got to go sit down and let this sit down, right? Because you got those natural sugars in your gut, the lactose, it's making you feel a bit bloated. So lactose-free is great. Probably just added about another like 10 grams of protein there. So we're now sitting at about 40 grams of protein. Lastly, going to finish off with some honey. Honey is pretty low calorie, right? So just a smidge there. And now we're all set to go, guys. Now, if you don't have a blender, you don't have a NutriBullet, all right, you can pick one up from like Walmart, Target, right? Whatever you like, local, home appliance store is. You can get a cheap one for about 30 bucks. Now, last thing I will say too, if you're trying to up your carbohydrates a little bit more, you can always add about, 15, 20 grams of oats. Going to give you some fiber for the day. Keep you fuller for a lot longer. Without further ado, let's blend this. All right, there she goes. Kind of spilt a little bit. Just want to make sure that you don't pack it up to the brim too much. Otherwise, there will be a little bit of spillage here. So take it from me. Hopefully you'll learn a thing or two. So guys, here we go. Right, tastes beautiful. Really great for a hot summer morning. Really great after a nice workout too. Right, but it's not very heavy in carbs. It's very low fat, about 40 grams of protein here. Got all those really great B vitamins, antioxidants from the fruit, and it's gonna make you feel like an absolute weapon at the office to start the day, right? And you can pretty much bring it with you whenever, right? It's super portable. All right, guys, you're gonna kill me. I just finished recording this, but I didn't have the camera on. So what I've done, I've taken about this much sweet potato. I don't really track my veggies like sweet potato. I don't really weigh this because, no one's ever gotten fat from eating too many veggies, right? So like I said, I've taken about this much here and I've chopped that all up, usually into about pieces this size. It's gonna take you about a minute, right? Get some spray oil, spray that all around. Doesn't have to be too much, right? Literally just something quick like this. Just a little bit, all right? And then I've just seasoned it with some chicken salt, right? If you live in America or Europe, you can always just use a little bit of table salt, a little bit of onion powder, right? So just a dash there, and don't be scared by using table salt, guys, okay? People do have this notion against salt. Salt is actually a crucial electrolyte. It's gonna keep us hydrated. We can drink water until we're blue in the face, right? But if it's not backed up with enough salt, then our body is just going to expel the water and flush out a lot of our body's key minerals along with it. So if we don't get enough salt with our meals, right, we're gonna feel depleted in the gym. Our strength is gonna be affected. We're gonna have a little bit of brain fog, right? So this is gonna help make sure that we stay properly hydrated. Alrighty guys, so now we're gonna add this to our air fryer, okay? Just gonna give it a quick final mix around there, and she's good to go, as we say in Australia, alright? So we're gonna turn this on, right? I'm using about 200 degrees Celsius here. I'm gonna pop that on for about 14 minutes, let that cook, and that's all we have to do. Okay guys, so now that our sweet potato is cooking, we are gonna get our beef mince cooked, okay? So, I'm gonna pop this open. Now the best thing about lean beef mince, although it's very lean, it still does contain a tiny bit of natural animal fats, okay? And that's actually gonna be enough to fully lubricate our pan, okay? So we're just gonna break this up. Now you can make this, for this meal we're making, you can make it into patties, alright, if you like. I'm just going to chop it all up. So I like to just sort of dig the spatula in and just flick my wrist a little bit. Find that's the best way to break it up, okay? And then I'm just going to sort of flatten it out a little bit. Kind of like a pancake, okay? I'm going to pop the lid on. Reason why I like to pop the lid on is because it's going to cook a lot faster. Okay, now one of the keys for fat loss, okay, the keys to making your food really juicy, really succulent, tastes great without using much oil is to keep this lid on. Because what a lot of guys do, they're going to cook their meal without the lid on, and what's going to happen is all the natural juices, the moisture of the meat is going to evaporate if this lid is off, okay? Meaning that the meat gets really dry really quickly. And that's why guys need to keep adding more oil. Just keep adding more oil. We don't need to keep adding more oil if we keep this pan on and we keep all the natural juices inside the pan, okay? That's a quick little hack for you. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes now. Doesn't take long to cook, right? So I do have this one on a high heat, right, the highest setting. And look at how juicy that looks, guys, using absolutely zero oil, no oil needed. We're just about ready now to add our seasoning. Okay, so today I'm just going to use some taco seasoning. Like I've said, this regular salt and pepper will be 100% fine. I just love me some Mexican seasoning. Alright, give that a mix around, and it's smelling great. Now you can add some onion in here too. To be honest, guys, I'm just a bit lazy, right? I'm very optimized with how I use my time. I just want the meal cooked. Now, while we're waiting for our sweet potato to finish, we're just going to quickly slice open our avocado. Usually, I'll just use half of an avocado, guys. So we're going to add our meal there, add our sweet potato. Okay, that is heaps. Now, it doesn't really matter how much beef you add to each particular meal, as long as you eat a certain amount by the end of the day, then you know exactly how much you've had. Like, as long as I have this entire serving by the end of the day, then I know I've had 500 grams of beef mince. Now, we're just going to add the last thing here, just some microwave rice. I'm just going to pop that in the microwave for about 2 minutes. Now, be careful when you add your rice, guys, because it will get bloody hot. Now, the icing on the cake here, the final little bit, just a little bit of chipotle mayo. Okay, I love this stuff. It's super low calorie. Okay, so I like to just give it a little drizzle like that. Any way you like is fine. Okay, and then the meal is ready, guys. Now, if you make this in a big batch, you can also have some for lunch too, which is certainly what I'd recommend doing, right? Make enough so that you can have, 2, even 3 portions for the day. And there we have a beautiful beef taco bowl there with some chipotle aioli. I'll drop the macros on the screen. Okay, so now, next meal up, right? On the days we aren't having beef, we can have some chicken. So what I've got right here is about 500 grams of standard chicken breast. Now this should be enough to get us through the day. So what I like to do, I honestly like to get some scissors here and just chop it up. I find it's a lot quicker than, just dicing it up with the standard, kitchen knife. Another reason why I like to dice it up before cooking it is because it'll cook a lot faster than just shoving one big fat chicken breast into the air fryer there. So it won't take long at all for us to finish cutting everything up. Okay, and then once that's all nicely chopped up, we're just gonna pour it into our bowl here. All right, now for our seasonings, we've got a bit of garlic salt here and a bit of paprika. So we'll pop the lid. Honestly, use as much as you like. I like mine nice and seasoned properly, so a little bit of garlic salt there. Okay, great. Now we're gonna get our spray cooking oil. Just be careful. Don't want the seasoning to go flying everywhere. Okay, cool, that's good. Now I'm just grabbing a teaspoon. You can use a fork, a knife, whatever you like. Just give that a nice whisk around. Make sure that seasoning gets in there properly. Alrighty, and now we're good to go. We're gonna pop that inside our air fryer. Okay. Let's take out our air fryer. We're going to pop our chicken in there. Okay, we'll give that a nice whisk around. Make sure there's no chicken on line on top of each other. We want it to cook as quick as possible. Okay, so that all looks pretty good to me. So we're going to put that in our air fryer now. And I'm going to cook this for about 13 minutes, 14 minutes, just to be sure, at 200 degrees Celsius. Now, I've already prepared a bowl here with some of our microwave rice and in addition to some sweet potato left over from the earlier recipe. So, literally just as easy as scooping out our chicken, putting it in our bowl. Now, like I said, guys, like if you know how much chicken that you're having in a given day, like 500 grams, right? Doesn't really matter, how much you put in a particular meal, right? Just as long as, you try to finish it all by the end of the day. That way you know how much chicken you've had, you know how much protein, right? So put that over there. We're gonna put our avocado down there. Okay, and she's almost ready to go. Last but not least, we're going to use some of our chipotle aioli once again. That's another meal that we can make pretty much just about day to day. Basically very similar to the beef one, except we're using chicken here with some slightly different seasonings. And this is something, guys, that you can really easily prepare in bulk, which is what I would definitely recommend doing. And, you can have multiple meals in a row. Alright guys, now we've got our final meal here for the video. So we've got 2 pieces of frozen salmon fillet here, hard as a rock. Each piece is about 125 grams. In total, we're looking at about 50 grams of protein in total. Okay, always best to place the skin facing downwards. That's what I like to do. So because they're frozen, first thing we've got to do is just very quickly defrost it. Otherwise it won't cook right. So we're going to put that on 80 degrees Celsius, just adjust that to Fahrenheit. If you're in the US, right? And then we're gonna defrost that for about 7 minutes. Okay, so now our salmon is defrosted. One thing, guys, too, so halfway through the defrost cycle, you want to flip it over, so that way it gets properly defrosted. So we're gonna flip it back, the tail facing down.
this time too, wouldn't hurt to spray a bit of oil on there as well, just to give it, you know, a bit of a nice crispy look to it. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. Something simple like that. Once again, chuck it in the air fryer. So this time, we're gonna chuck it on for 200 degrees Celsius. We're gonna chuck that on now for 11 minutes, and that's all we need. Okay, so our salmon is almost finished cooking. We've got about 4 minutes left. So what we're gonna do now, we're just gonna chuck our broccolini in, right? It should cook nice and fine in the air fryer. You know, you don't want to give it any more than 5 minutes, otherwise it might get a little bit too crispy. All right, but 4 minutes should do the trick, should come out nice and cooked. Okay guys, so now our salmon and our broccolini is ready. Our salmon is nice and crispy there. Okay, so we're gonna take that off, and that is beautiful. Cooked perfectly. Now you are gonna get, you know, a lot more of that really nice crispy sear, always cooking on a pan with lots of oil, but hey, we are trying to save calories here. Right, so we're gonna add some of our broccolini now. Use as much of this as you like, right? And last but not least, we're gonna add some rice. Okay, so this one's really, really simple to make, right? Nothing complex, don't need to be Jamie Oliver. A little bit of rice, however much you want. To me, that looks pretty perfect. Okay, last but not least here, now you can use like a hummus, you can use a tartare sauce, right? For me, I'm just gonna keep things nice and simple. Just use my aioli here once again for the sake of the video. Okay, and then obviously, you know, add salt, add whatever other seasonings you like, and that is good to go, guys. Alrighty guys, cooking time is now over, so we have all of our meals prepared. We've got a berry smoothie, scrambled eggs, chicken bowl, beef bowl, and we've got a salmon and rice plate here. So every one of these meals you're looking at here has ballpark 500 calories with around 40 to 50 grams of protein per day, okay? So like I was saying earlier at the start of the video, we want to try and aim for 3 to 4 whole food meals per day, okay? Really depending on how tall you are, right? Like if you're 6 foot or over, then I would definitely try and keep it to 4 meals per day. If you're, you know, 5 foot and below, like you're shorter than 5'11", right? Shorter than 5'11", I would definitely aim for about 3 of these meals per day, okay? It's still gonna total to 150 grams of protein, okay? So whether you're sticking to 3 or 4 meals per day, okay, that's gonna put you approximately 15 to 2,000 calories per day, right? And if we are training correctly in the gym, which we're gonna get to very shortly, we're hitting, you know, a minimum daily step count, this will put you into a very solid calorie deficit, okay? And we will also be building muscle during that process, doing what's called a body recomposition, okay? So moving forward, right? Our next steps here, we're gonna be diving into our training, okay? So how do we train to build muscle and simultaneously burn fat, okay, for less than 2 hours per week in the gym? So very shortly, you're gonna see me just there. So guys, thanks for joining me in the gym. What I just did right there was what's called training to mechanical failure. And that's where I pretty much have as close to 0 reps left in reserve by the end of the set. Now, the way that my clients and I train, we follow what's called a reverse pyramid training split. And we always start with our heaviest set first, usually about 6 reps, taken to failure. And as our strength fatigues, with each set, we gradually pick a lighter and lighter weight. And we account for this by gradually doing higher and higher reps. So we start off with our heaviest weight first, smallest number of reps, training to mechanical failure. As our strength fatigues, we gradually do lighter and lighter weights, building up to high and higher number of reps. And this is because building muscle is directly correlated with what's called progressive overload, which is basically lifting with the heaviest weights possible safely, and after several weeks, several months, progressively lifting heavier and heavier weights, because if we're getting stronger, it means that we're building muscle. Now, it always makes sense to start with our heaviest set first when we have the most available energy, not to do our heaviest set after 4 to 5 warm-up sets when we've already pre-exhausted the muscle. Now, training to mechanical failure with a heavy weight is so important because we have to send a sufficient stimulus to our muscle to justify a growth response. Because we can come in here and do 50 sets of light, fluff, junk volume, and you've basically just done cardio and provided barely any muscle building stimulus, which is why so many guys come into the gym and their physique stays the same year after year. Now, resistance training is also so key for fat loss because of its metabolic stimulus. We can do cardio for hours a day until we're blue in the face, and it's still got nothing on a 40-minute weight session training to failure. Because the process of recovery and building muscle while we're sleeping is a highly energy intensive process. So we're burning tons of calories while we're sleeping in order to support recovery and the growth of new muscle tissue. So we're burning calories in the gym, we're burning calories while we sleep, we're building lean, aesthetic, sexy muscle while turning our metabolism into a fat burning furnace. And this means that we burn more calories at rest. So the more muscle that you have, the more muscle that you burn, even while you're doing absolutely nothing, sitting down on the couch watching Netflix. And this is exactly how my clients and I manage to stay lean year round on autopilot. Now, if I were you and I was strapped on time, I'd probably start with a push-pull leg split, 3 workouts a week. And if you can't manage that, you can just start with an upper and lower split, 2 workouts per week. The goal here isn't just to thrash the weight from A to B, all right? We wanna lift with purpose. Now, there are 2 key portions of pretty much any lift at the gym. Now, the first portion is the concentric. This is the explosive part of the lift, right? The upwards curl on a bicep. When you're doing a lat pull down and you're explosively pulling that weight in, or you're on the bench press and you're explosively pushing that weight up. That's the concentric portion. Now, the portion is the eccentric, commonly known as the negative portion, okay? This is pretty much where you're bringing the weight back to its starting position, okay? So for example, when we bring in that weight back up, right? With the bench press, okay? When you're bringing that weight down, okay? It's the portion of the lift where you can feel that tension on the muscle fiber. Okay, so the goal here is to perform the concentric as explosively as you can, and then time that negative at about 2 to 3 seconds. You want to really feel that stretch and that tear on the muscle fiber. And you want to eliminate momentum once again, and then you repeat. Now, this is how you're going to train most effectively to break down that muscle fiber so that during recovery, we can build it back bigger and stronger. Now, training for building muscle is all about quality of our reps, of our sets, training to mechanical failure as opposed to quantity, all right? Sacrificing the sake of the quality of our sets for the purpose of trying to get as much volume in as possible, okay? Volume does not always equal more gains. Now, a couple of heavy sets taken to failure for, let's say, 4, maximum 5 different exercises is all you need. And that's exactly how my clients and I still stay muscular year round with just a little bit over 2 hours per week in the gym.
Alrighty, fellas, so at this point, we've done a grocery haul, we've made a couple of recipes, gone over the ideal meal structure you want to follow, we've gone to the gym and really told you the basics around training protocol, right, to build lean muscle, torch body fat, pretty much on autopilot. Now, the final piece of this puzzle, right, of course, cardio. Now, most guys, make the mistake here, right, of really over leveraging the role and the importance of cardio, okay, as their primary, fat burning mechanism, right? This is a big mistake because cardio really is just the icing on the cake, right? If we're training in the gym to failure and we're strategically selecting certain meals, okay, certain foods in our diet, that should really be 80% of the pie here, okay? The purpose of cardio is just really to marginally increase the calorie deficit that we're already in, okay? And the ideal way to go around cardio is to stick to what we call low
impact cardio, okay? There are two types of cardio, low impact and high impact. Now, high impact includes things like running, right? High intensity interval training, that's like your cardio circuits where you're doing like burpees and jumping jacks, right? And like hill sprints. Also includes boxing too, okay? Low intensity cardio is pretty much just walking. We want to focus on low intensity cardio, okay, is because there's not really much of a recovery process involved, okay? Meaning that we can burn a fair amount of calories just from walking, okay, and do very little damage to our body, right? Because if we're already training to failure in the gym, right, with weights, okay, that's already going to be a pretty heavy recovery process that our body has to do, right? If every day or, you know, certain days of the week, our body is trying to recover from not only weights, but, you know, just brutal cardio sessions, we're really going to be at risk here of overtraining. The benefit of this, like I said, is that we can prioritize our recovery in the gym, which is going to be the highest metabolic stimulus training we can do, okay, while still being able to very easily burn a pretty significant amount of calories just from steps. So me personally and all my clients, we just aim for around 8 to 10K steps per day. There's a couple of different ways you can structure this, okay? So, you know, you can, if you're like me, you can really just get it all done in one increment in the day, right? Usually you can knock that out in like, you know, around 35, 40 minutes. So if you normally wake up at 8 a.m. to start the day, well, let's roll the alarm clock back 40 minutes, right? Get a coffee, play, you know, load up a good podcast there, right? Walk 20 minutes one way outside of the house, turn around, come home. Literally easy as that, right? Now, you can also, right, decide to break it up into chunks per day. So maybe you get like 15, 20 minutes in the morning, right? Let's say on your lunch break, right? If you have, let's say a 40-minute lunch break, I mean, how long does it really take to have lunch? 5, 10 minutes if you're actually hungry, right? And then what? You know, most guys just spend a good 20, 30 minutes on their lunch break scrolling the phone like a zombie. Instead, let's get outside, right? Let's get some fresh air, let's get some sun, get another 15 minutes in then, right? And you can even get another 15 minutes, you know, when you clock off at the end of the workday, you know? And truthfully, guys, too, you know, starting your day with steps, right? Because you're getting outside. When you're walking, your brain is producing dopamine. Your brain is producing serotonin. You're getting vitamin D, which is a critical vitamin for optimal testosterone, okay? And testosterone is obviously critical for muscle building, fat loss, energy levels, all that good stuff. So it's a far better way to start the day, get outside in nature, rather than, you know, waking up and just scrolling the phone for 20 minutes in bed.
All right, let's bring it all together. So we started off with the shopping list, showing you exactly what to get and why. We then cooked up meals that take 10 to 15 minutes to cook, that taste great and actually help you lose fat without tracking a single calorie. We then walked through a realistic approach to training, no fluff, just an efficient, time-friendly approach that burns body fat while building muscle. And we then finished with the most underrated tool in fat loss, low intensity cardio, mainly hitting a daily step goal. And if you followed what I just showed you and stick to it for the next 16 weeks, your body will change, period. Because this isn't just a fad or some online hype or trend. This is a lifestyle blueprint that's actually built for busy, high-performing men who are short on time but don't want to stay stuck. Now, to make your life even easier, I've linked all the free tools we used in this video in the description below. A high-protein recipe book with over 10 delicious meals, a plug-and-play meal plan with portion sizes based on your height and weight, a complete shopping list so you know exactly what to buy every week. You can download these right now, 100% free, no strings attached. And hey, if this video helped you out, the best way to say thanks is simple. Hit that like button, subscribe for more no BS guides like this video, and you can drop a comment on where you're starting from. I'd love to hear your story. And if you want help applying all of this at the highest level with full accountability, structure, and coaching, check the link below this video to see how we can work together. And let's make the next 16 weeks the most powerful transformation of your life. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.